bump a loop off a womp bamboo to the pretty, alrighty, to the pretty, alrighty, hey, to the pretty, alrighty, to the pretty, alrighty.
What were your initial thoughts on Eric Bischoff?
I liked Eric. He was refreshing. I didn't know if he really had a handle on what he was doing, but I think he could be very personable. He was the one that said, "We need you here.
Right.
We want you here," and that was kind of good for me to hear. It got me back up again, and a new challenge. A new challenge.
Early on, what did you notice about the differences between WCW's TV and WWF's TV?
Instantaneously, the television production people. Production values. WCW, they were lousy. They weren't organized. It was just kind of a shoddy production. But eventually, they turned the light on down there, and their production values came up with the advent of Nitro, Monday Nitro, and I think they looked just about as good as the WWE.
Were you surprised when Vince created the character Scheme Gene?
Scheme Gene. Why would he come up with that character? What do you think? I'm scamming old people out of their retirement money? I mean, one lousy hotline,
Right.
and he calls me Scheme Gene?
Did you personally get offended by that, or
No.
No. Okay.
Why would you get offended?
Right.
The huckster, the Nacho Man.
Right.
Please.
Did you ever talk to anybody in the company about it in WWE at the time? Did you still have contact with anybody?
I did, but very little. I mean,
Right.
they had a job to do. We have a job to do.
Talk about the hotline for WCW. Was it a big moneymaker for you, or?
It was a big moneymaker for me, but it was a much bigger moneymaker for them. I took that hotline over. It was doing approximately $350,000 a year in revenue. Jimmy Ross and others were doing it, but we got her up and running and started promoting it on the air. And I think you guys will always remember tonight in my hotline, 909-9900, all of that.
Right.
But it ended up doing $3 million a year.
Wow. Did you ever feel sleazy by some of the cheap teases that you gave for it at all?
Yeah, I did, no question. But on the other hand, you got to have a little bit of that carny in you.
Exactly.
Humpty Diddy, tip the kitty, 3 throws for $1. Come on in, folks.
Right.
Sure.
Do you think the internet ruined the business?
No. I think the internet just became another extension of the dirt sheets.
Right.
Those great publications, and they were. I mean, all of a sudden there was this subculture that was developing because of guys like Meltzer and folks like yourself and Wade Keller and some of these other guys.
Right. Now, when you first heard about the idea for Monday Night Nitro, did you think it would work? What were your thoughts?
The only thing I thought is, why go head to head with the guy on Monday night? Why not give the wrestling fans a chance to enjoy both Raw and Nitro by going on a different night? Now that I look back at it, kind of a genius of a move. That move, by the way, was purely Ted Turner.
Right.
Yeah.
You talked earlier.
Ted Turner said, BS. We're not going to go on Wednesday night. We're going to go on Monday night head to head with the guy.
Eric Bischoff, we talked about him a couple of minutes ago. Do you feel he was in control of his product, or do you think like Hogan was in his ear? And then I heard stories that Nash and Scott Hall kind of had control of him.
Everybody was in his ear.
Right.
I think what Eric probably should have done, as I look back in 2020 hindsight, probably should have put himself inside the room with a good television producer. Somebody like a Kevin Dunn. You get somebody like that, Kevin Dunn, obviously not available,
Right.
but maybe, just maybe, there might be somebody out there. Work those details out with them, and not let the boys, and have in the contract that they had creative control over their character.
Right.
Come on,
Right.
give me a break.
Do Do you think Bischoff understood the business, or do you think he was in over his head?
Oh, I think he was in way over his head. I think the general consensus, if you talk to Eric Bischoff, I think he would tell you the thing just began to spin out of control, and you couldn't stop it. It would be like holding your hand up in front of a freight train. It couldn't be stopped. But I mean, there was great success there with the NWO,
Right.
but all of a sudden the NWO became bigger than WCW.
Right.
You had 20 guys over there.
True. You and Ric Flair had incredible chemistry together in WCW. Why do you think that was?
Ric Flair and myself had tremendous chemistry in the bar, and it just kind of rolled over into television.
Right.
No, I mean, he's a Minneapolis guy. He's, believe it or not, a little closer to my age than some of the people I worked with. But, yeah, I think the world of Ric Flair. He's a guy, the consummate guy that can do it in the ring, behind the camera, and he's a proven commodity.
Without a doubt. Do you think that Hulk Hogan was a good or bad thing in the end for WCW?
Well, I think he was a good thing.
Right.
I don't think WCW without Hulk Hogan would have reached the pinnacle, the height that they did, where for 86 weeks dominated the WWF, or WWE.
Right.
Hogan was a big part of that.
Did he try and look out for you there?
No, Hulk looked out for himself.
Right.
He did at other times though look out for me, and very close. There was a great association between Hulk Hogan and Mean Gene Okerlund, and I was the one that picked up the phone and said, "I've been told I'm going to be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame at WrestleMania, and Hulk, I'd like to have you present me." He says, "Linda, give me the calendar." He said, "I got it open? Yeah, I'll do it." I said, "Okay, Vince or Kevin Dunn will be calling you with the details." And, I mean, it's great. He buried me on it, talking about all the running around. I had my wife in the front row there. But, yeah, he's a great guy and a good friend.
What do you think of his reality show?
I think great. This guy reinvents himself
Right.
every 10 years.
Sure.
I mean, he did it initially with Rocky, then on to a movie career after the WWE or during that period of time, a television series, and now back with this reality show, and everywhere I go. My barber talks about it all the time.
How did things change in WCW with the explosion of the NWO?
Ooh. Boy, we had, once that became a bona fide hit, we had a lot of people taking credit for the NWO, the New World Order. Scott Hall, Kevin Nash came in, and they were the interlopers as the outsiders.
Right.
So all of a sudden, they say, "Wait a minute, the television audience is watching the show. Are these guys with WCW, or are they still with the WWE?"
Right.
I don't know. I think they confused fans. I think the fans took a little time to sort it all out. But it was a good thing.
It really helped them big time. How out of control did things get in WCW?
Well, I probably could give you a laundry list that
Right.
we could chew up 3 or 4 hours of tape. But I was never really handed in the later stages of WCW any kind of a format, a run sheet for the show until we were 10, 15, 20 minutes into the show. No preparation. Where do we go with this interview with Buff Bagwell? What am I going to do with Scott Steiner? And the guys could say whatever they wanted to.
Right.
I mean, when Vince Russo came in there, he wasn't the solution. He added to the problem because the boys were going to buck him, and they knew they could do it and get away with it. Plus, he had a little different idea of what television was all about.
Right. Yeah. Was it frustrating when Eric's constant attempts at trying to work the locker room and the boys with different angles and stuff?
You know, at that particular point, I think Bobby Heenan and myself had stepped back and realized that it was a different era where maybe the tail was wagging the dog. And I mean, it was so apparent because plans would have to be changed at the last minute.
Lots of politics.
A lot of politics, and that doesn't work. If I can go to Doug and tell him something and go around you're offended, and he doesn't get what he initially wanted anyway, I've offended both of you.
Right.
And that's kind of the name of the game. And politics ran rampant, as they would say, in WCW.
How did you wind up in the Millionaires Club angle and memories of feuding with Pamela Paulshock?
Pamela Paulshock.
Right.
Yeah. A nice young lady. Well endowed.
Yes.
We all agree to that,
Without a
right?
doubt.
But big time airhead. And you know, she played the part. Maybe she was the smartest gal on the block. And you know, Marilyn Monroe was a bright gal, 50 years ago.
Right.
She got what she wanted, but she played the airhead to do it.
Did you like playing part of that angle, or?
The Millionaires angle,
Right.
yeah, it didn't offend me, and I was told to do it. And a good soldier does what he is told by his commanding officer.
How did Eric Bischoff change over time?
Eric Bischoff, I think, believed that as time went on that he was a genius, and he was the great creator of this thing. And then all of a sudden he became very power hungry. Being able to tell people what to do, and if they didn't do it, what he could do to them. That he, with the snap of a finger, could end their careers. Not so.
Right.
Not so.
One of actually, it's one of the interviews you did on the internet with Brett with El Dandy. What are your memories of that? Do you remember that one, or?
I do recall that. Is this the one where Brett kind of vented his spleen?
Yes.
Here again, too much information.
Right.
Yeah. Back to Eric, just for a second.
Sure.
Now that Eric and myself aren't working together, or I'm not working for him, he and I have had some pretty good conversations. He can be likable, and I think that his tenure here in the WWE, I think he did a great job for the company.
Definitely.
I don't think a lot of people would argue with the fact. As the general manager, he had credibility, and he certainly could play the part of a heel without too much work.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
How much leeway did you have in both WWF and WCW as far as ad-libbing?
Well, back in the old days, I mean, everything was ad-libbed. I loved the All-American Wrestling because I wrote the script as I sat in that studio down in Baltimore and tried to intertwine a little entertainment with, that was kind of a recap show of what's happened in the last week or two. And to be able to talk about some of the things that happened behind the scenes, a great experience. So, I mean, you control the ad-libbing yourself.
Right.
Eventually, if it became too out of control or too controlled by the company, you would hear about it. I had a tendency to be, what would you say, gentlemen, irreverent from time to time,
Right.
and that was looked upon as maybe something that shouldn't be done.
Jumping back to Eric, I didn't mean to jump around, but what do you feel Eric's biggest mistake was in WCW? Was it listening to the boys?
Listening to the boys.
Letting the guys
and I
run
mean
the-
everybody. That would be as big a mistake as listening to me.
Right.
But I mean, having the input, Bret Hart had creative control. Kevin Nash had creative control over his character. Hogan, obviously. But I think the big one was Bill Goldberg.
All right.
Bill Goldberg,
new
somebody
to-
that hadn't been in the business more than 2.5 or 3 years,
Exactly.
and he was calling his shots. And I like Goldberg. I mean, he's a fun guy, great guy.
How did things change when Russo came over?
All things changed instantly. Number one, talking politics, the boys had their respective noses as far up his rear end the first day of TV as they possibly could.
Wow.
Everybody tried to, huddle with him. Where's my spot going to be here? What am I going to be able to do? Am I going to be a champion? What can we do? I've been good to you. Vince, now here's your chance where you can be good to me.
Do you think he was in over his head?
Definitely.
Bobby Heenan talks a lot about Tony Schiavone being untrustworthy and slimy. Do you agree?
Well, Tony was the consummate politician, and I personally like Tony. I didn't have a lot of problems with him, but Tony watched out for Tony,
All right.
and in doing so, he had a tendency to bury people along the way, and that's where he got kind of the rep, if you will, that he was not trustworthy.
Thoughts on Mike Tenay?
Mike Tenay, knowledgeable, not a broadcaster, but certainly knew a lot about wrestling. His specialty was the Mexican lucha libre promotions and also the Japanese promotions.
Right.
He came out of nowhere, and I understand he's still around today doing TNA.
Right. What are your thoughts on Mark Madden and your match?
Well, that was an abortion. Should have never happened. But that wasn't Mark Madden's fault. That wasn't Gene Okerlund's fault. That was Vince Russo's fault. Who would put a piece of garbage like that on television intentionally? And I mean, you're not going to make any money off of it. You're not going to draw. You're going to embarrass me. You're going to embarrass Mark Madden, who should be at Weight Watchers. Not that I'm saying I shouldn't be, but I mean, it was terrible.
Did
Terrible
you say
program.
anything?
Pardon?
Did you say anything to the office at all about it, or
Who are you going to talk to?
just did it and got paid?
The only guy I could have talked to would have been Brad Siegel, who was the entertainment division head for Turner Time Warner.
Do you think at that time they were doing these angles and matches, just they were worried too much about the buy rate or the ratings of that 1 quarter hour where it like compromised the product?
No long-term thinking at all. You hit the nail on the head. They were worrying about getting a Monday night rating or getting a Wednesday night rating or getting a buy rate. But that episode down in Florida, and I believe it was at Bash at the Beach or one of those pay-per-views where Vince Russo went off with that shoot interview on Hogan.
No.
I thought that was absolutely despicable. That was the end of it.
Right.
That was it. It was all over, baby. That was it.
What are your thoughts right now on Vince making good-looking women and guys interviewers these days, as compared to guys with credibility and wrestling background?
To each his own. To tell you the truth, I watch Fox News, and I didn't watch Dan Rather or Tom Brokaw because I like the little leg.
Right.
So, hey, I'm one of the guys, and that's kind of the name of the game today.
Right.
I think, though, to get an angle over, I think if it comes to something where you got to carry the load, then you got to have a broadcaster or somebody that can lead that conversation, can lead that interview.
Speaking of WCW, what do you think was the reason that they went out of business? When did you realize that they were in big trouble?
Well, I knew they were in big trouble when they're losing $60-70 million a year and billing $250 million. The books just didn't match up. But I think the real crowning blow is when AOL merged with Time Warner, and they didn't want to have anything to do with wrestling. As a matter of fact, a lot of the old Turner people didn't want to have anything to do with wrestling. But Ted Turner said, "I love my wrestling." It's the first live programming that he had on TBS, and he stood by it.
How did you find out about the sale of WCW?
I was sitting at home. I was asked not to come to TV. And the crazy part about it is, this is how insane this whole thing had become. I had just signed a multi-year contract that actually, long-term, exceeded well over $1 million.
Wow.
and that was signed with Turner Broadcasting.
Did you get paid for it still, or
I got paid every nickel,
nice?
every nickel.
Is it true like some of the guys were getting paid up into like 2005, like $1 million? Who was it? Was it
I forgot.
Goldberg, I think, or somebody?
I don't remember.
They were getting.
Well, I don't know about them. I do know about me.
Right. Thoughts on DDP?
DDP was a friend of Eric Bischoff's. There was some resentment there, not by me, but by some other guys in the locker room. That the reason that Diamond Dallas got the big push was because he was friends with Eric Bischoff, and that perhaps there might have been some kind of a thing going on between the families.
Right.
You
We've
know,
heard about that.
who am I to say? Wouldn't have minded tagging in on that deal, by the way.
Did you talk to anyone about going back to WWF at this period of time, or?
I had constant conversation with Kevin Dunn.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, before I signed the last contract, I said, is there anything that I could do up there kind of as a, I'm thinking that, you know, some of the old time Jack Whitaker, Dick Schaap, you know, do kind of special features and things like that, where I could kind of glide into this thing,
Right.
but still be a part of it. And Kevin says, I'll work on it because we'd love to have you back here now, and Vince feels good about you and about your work. So the next thing I knew, about 6 months later, Kevin said, I've got a show for you. It's called Confidential.
Right.
Let's see what we can do.
Do you think that show exposed the business too much?
Well, I think what it did, I don't know if it exposed the business. I mean, this business has been exposed
Right.
about as much as any business could
Right.
be. But I think what it did, it put the office in a position where it had to coincide with their storylines ongoing. And I think the real great pieces that we did were on Stone Cold Steve Austin. I think the delving into the tragic death of Miss Elizabeth. I think that maybe some of the things we did with Shawn Michaels and his differences with The Office and exposing that on a show. What does Confidential mean? This is the inside track.
Do you think Vince, with the whole Miss Elizabeth thing, do you think maybe he knocked Luger too hard and portrayed him in like a real negative light, especially right after that incident happened?
Well, obviously, Lex Luger was involved with Miss Elizabeth, and it was a tragedy. And I talked to Lex recently in New York, and he felt very, very bad about that. I'm sure it affected him, and he did legitimately tell me that he loved the girl, but if you loved her, you wouldn't be feeding her booze and pills and giving her an opportunity to do something like that.
True. What are your initial memories of conversations with Vince again?
When I came back,
When you came back?
oh, they were great. You know what? We didn't talk about the old days either.
Huh.
We talked about the future. I'm not a big nostalgia buff, even though we do have a lot of history in WWE. When I go back to things like, you know, WrestleMania 1, WrestleMania 3, the highlights, and there were some lowlights in there too.
Right.
But no, Vince is big at talking about the future.
Vince is known nowadays for giving his announcers lines, you know, through the headsets. What are your thoughts on that?
It's his show. Maybe he's enough of a perfectionist that he wants this a certain way, and that's his way of communicating with the guys when they're on the air. I understand when Joey Styles first came aboard and hit that Monday Night Raw scene, that he got a lot. Now, too much of that, and you're going to all of a sudden destroy the spontaneity that you need
Right.
out of that. I'm not being critical of him doing it because he's got something in mind, and that's the way.
Do you like Joey's work?
Do I like Joey's work? I love it.
Okay.
I tell you what, he's got such a strong association with ECW that it was kind of tough to see him on Raw. But you know what? It all worked out great. The setup was great, and I think it was all done by design from day one.
What are your thoughts on Jim Ross?
Jim Ross, good guy. Could be political, but certainly very knowledgeable. Became a real student of the game. The Oklahoma thing, kind of, I think that came from The Office.
Right.
I don't think that came from Jim. JR now likes to wear the cowboy hat because he's identified with it. You wear it on TV for 10 years, hell, you should be. Just like the other guy is going to be, I don't know if you're going to wear it in an airport someplace, the crown, but
Right.
Jerry Lawler's been on TV, he's a household word.
How good was it to come back at WrestleMania and your memories of calling the Battle Royal with Bobby Heenan?
The gimmick battle royal?
Right.
How would you like to have been a Viagra salesman in the middle of that ring? You could have scored a fortune.
Right.
You know what? It was fun. And we knew from the beginning that it was going to be fun. And that's why I'd bring out those old cliches, Hillbilly Jim in there, guy that goes bear hunting with a switch. Only two ways you can be down there in Mudlick. That was a big old good 'un or a good old big 'un. So, but it brought out all of those
Right.
old terms and descriptions of the boys.
How did things change as far as production is compared to when you were last in WWE?
I think things they pre-package a lot. They don't do stand-up interviews. When I left here, we were doing stand-up interviews. And in that respect, it changed. It's very controlled. Back in the old days, there were so many things that were done by accident that were great. That today, it seems a little forced. But Lord knows it's working, and there's more product out there today than they've ever had.
What are your thoughts of being inducted into the Hall of Fame?
Great honor. Never thought it would happen. Why would an announcer go into the Hall of Fame? And being the first announcer. We all know that, probably some of these decisions are made by the office, but I considered it a great honor. And then after the show, Vince said, well, you gave him a punchline.
Huh.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
Talk about Vince today and the change he has made over the years.
Well, I mean, this is a corporate, a juggernaut now. I mean, compared to, there were 8 people over on Hollyhock Lane in Greenwich, Connecticut when I came here. We did the interviews inside this rather small, dismal office building. I'd have Hogan up against the wall and we'd have a backdrop. Matter of fact, it probably was a blue curtain.
Right.
But those were very modest beginnings, and I'm sure he was operating on a shoestring. Howard Finkel was there
He was there from day one, right?
from day one. Jimmy Troy, Bob McMullen. I'm trying to think, of course, on the outside, Gorilla Monsoon, Arnie Skolin, a lot of the confidants, Chief Jay Strongbow, as both a wrestler and an agent. So it was a very modest beginning for him.
What are your thoughts on Stephanie and Shane?
Well, since I'm big on nepotism myself, I think if they want to do it, I think they should be there. And both have showed tremendous affection for the business.
Do they have an understanding of the business?
I think they do. I really think they do. I'm impressed with both of them.
Right.
And I'm not blowing smoke because my age, I don't need to. Don't need to put somebody over.
Right.
If I thought they were doing a poor job, I would share those thoughts with you also. But I think Stephanie, now that she's a mom, I don't know, what kind of a role she's going to play in the company. But Shane asked something about the Madison Square Garden show and the fact that the response was so positive. I realize that he's got his head into the business.
Right.
He wants to know why. It's a good question to ask. Why? Why do things work?
Thoughts on Triple H?
I worked with him in Atlanta at WCW, and very hardworking, very conscientious.
Student of the game.
Yeah, and here's the one problem he had there. He was going nowhere. So when he had an opportunity through Shawn Michaels to come up to the WWE, I said, we're going to hate to lose you here, because I thought he had great potential. He had the look. He had the look.
We're talking about Triple H and your thoughts on Triple H, and you had a sidebar comment, I think, about the family.
Well, we were talking also about Triple H and the family and how modest things were in the beginning. I recall that Hogan, myself, Vince, went over to Vince's rented house in Greenwich in his rented Lincoln Town Car and sat down, and Shane was a little guy, Stephanie was littler, Linda was there. Linda made dinner for us. We all ate at the table, then went in and started mapping out some plans, some strategies for the future, actually writing the shows that were going to lead into WrestleMania 1.
Wow.
So he put us up in the house, and that's the way it was done.
That's where the magic happened.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the deaths over the last few years with guys like Kurt Hennig, Hercules, Road Warrior Hawk, Bossman?
Tragic. Terrible. I mean, these are all young men. The Eddie Guerrero, which is the most recent, so tragic. I mean, I've known that kid forever. Nice piece of talent. Good young man. And I think he'd turned the corner on any of the problems he might have had, but unfortunately, in that particular instance, with a coronary, probably it's damage from the past.
Right.
Kurt Hennig, senseless. And the story you were telling me about Roddy Piper, you know, you need the pill to get you up, you need the pill to get you down, you need the pill to get you going, keep you going. That's all BS. That's what killed these guys. Rick Rude, Kurt Hennig, Louis Spicolli, Davey Boy Smith. I mean, to go down that list, and I missed, a ton of people. It's tragic.
Do you think the boys have learned their lesson, or do you think if they have the attitude, it ain't going to happen to me?
I think there's a certain amount of that. I think that's a good comment. That I'm bulletproof. I'll go on forever. None of us are going to go on forever.
Wasn't a couple of those guys, 3 of them were even from Robbinsdale, weren't they?
Yeah.
Rude
Hawk? Was Hawk?
and Hawk.
Yeah, from 110.
Yeah.
Are you surprised guys like Hogan and Flair, who have been around this long, are still on top? And still actually working in the ring?
That doesn't surprise me. Those guys, back in the old days, they probably wouldn't have let them work to that age.
Right.
But, God, you take a look at Hogan, you take a look at Flair, and they can outwork some of the younger guys. So, Babe Ruth, take a look at him. He drank every night, would pitch.
8-12 hot dogs between double headers.
Yeah, exactly. Smoked a carton of cigarettes a day.
Right. What are your thoughts on WWE looking out for the pro wrestling world for announcers and apparently preferring that you don't know anything about the business?
Well, I don't necessarily agree with that. The one thing that I found out in broadcasting in general today, when I broke into the business, you had to do the cup deer, you had to have a voice, you had to have a delivery, and today that might be the way things are going. They should know a little bit about broadcasting, whether or not they know anything about wrestling. If an individual producer feels that way, so be it.
Were you
Better educate them in a hell of a hurry, though.
Yeah, definitely. Were you surprised to see Bret Hart return?
I don't quite understand if he has returned, though.
Right.
I mean, he's been inducted into the Hall of Fame. Bret was at the Hall of Fame was very aloof to me, and I've been very close to him because I've been close to his father. My son played in the Olympics up in Calgary in 1988, And thank God for Stu and Helen Hart. They put us up. My family came up there. I got a chance to see my kid play in the Olympics. I loved them. I loved Brett. Few of the other guys, you know, Neidhart, a little on the strange side.
I'll tell you stories later.
Could be a little off the wall. I can tell you stories. I know you can. We'll
You probably
exchange
have-
them.
You probably have a million.
Yeah.
What made Pat Patterson a great finish man?
Well, Pat was an entertainer. I mean, Pat realized this was entertainment. You've got to give the people what they want to make them pop. You got to give the people not necessarily what they want, but what they need to buy a ticket for the next event, to buy a ticket or buy into the next pay-per-view. That's what made Pat Patterson the greatest finish man of all time.
Do you think he was better than Eddie Graham in Florida?
Different era.
Right.
Eddie Graham, wrestling. Pat Patterson, entertainment. Eddie Graham was good, no question. Mike Graham's a good finish man. Dusty Rhodes a good finish man.
Thoughts on Bruno Sammartino and Vince McMahon's relationship?
Well, I got a little bit of that because Bruno was doing shows when I first came here. I don't think I saw Bruno in more than maybe a dozen matches, but he was doing some color on TV, and of course, I mean, he was bigger than life. But he did not like the way that Vince was taking the business. He blamed Vince for a lot of the things that were happening in the business. Hell, steroids were being taken in this business, in football, in other sports, and just by bodybuilding, long before it was even heard of here.
Right.
So, you know, I mean, it was old hat, and Bruno was very adamant about the direction the company was taking. He thought it was going to ruin the business. Too many people knew too much.
Right. What are your thoughts on the lack of kayfabe in the business today? You think it hurt the business, or you think otherwise?
I think it did. I think it did. But take a look at the subculture that's been developed by
Reality.
Huh. So
You think the business could ever go back?
could it? Oh, I think it could. I think it could. Pretty tough now, though. We smartened up the wrong people.
Right.
We should have smartened up the TV people, not the fans.
Right.
I think they would have liked it better that way too.
Without a doubt. Do you feel a good TV writer could write good wrestling? And what are your thoughts on the writers in WWE as far as they were never really around the business and they don't understand the business, and you have guys in the locker room like Arn Anderson and other veterans that should be doing that job?
Yeah, but should Arn Anderson, should Ricky Steamboat, should Tony Garea, Pat Patterson be writing
I understand.
dialogue?
Right.
I mean, they can do the wrestling. What they need to do is you've got writers. They get the input from the office. Here's what we're going to be doing, and we'll give you the wrestling components. You now come up with dialogue that is going to be, we're going to make everything work.
Right. Do you actually like the writers as far as, not as people individually, but do you think it's a good idea, or did you like it back in the old days when you had one guy who was pretty much the booker and he was pretty much the guy who wrote everything?
That couldn't have gone on forever.
Right.
It couldn't have gone on indefinitely. Having these high-powered, highly produced shows, you had to have writers. I still think there's a place, excuse me, for stand-up interviews, though. I had made the suggestion to Vince and to Kevin Dunn that I would like to be doing interviews that meant something, stand-up interviews in the old way that we used to do them, center of the ring, like I do with the Flair, like I do with, but hell, I mean, I did them with Tito Santana.
Right.
You did them with everybody. But the interviews would have to be special. They'd have to be a Hogan. They'd have to be a Flair. They'd have to be somebody from the old school so we could tie it in.
Right, right.
I think they were at one point thinking about that on Saturday night's main event, but thus far it hasn't happened. But on the other hand, I don't think they're really jumping up and down with the numbers on Saturday night's main event.
Right.
Who is the most talented announcer that you worked with? If you can name one. were almost like, wow, this guy's better than me and all this. I want to.
Well, I'll tell you who were good all around, and I would be absolutely ecstatic to be put into the same category with a Gordon Soley. I thought Gordon, between interviews, play-by-play, some people said there was no excitement or no enthusiasm in his play-by-play commentary. He didn't need it. He didn't need to scream. He didn't need to shout. He did just a great job of calling the action. It was credible. It was believable. But I also have got high regard for Vince when Vince was calling the action, and I was working beside him in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and Hamburg, and those places. I thought Vince did a great job of calling the action. My personal all-time favorite that I liked was Gorilla Monsoon. He was a wrestler. He knew what he was talking about. He knew all the moves. He was a great amateur wrestler. And he was very entertaining, plus he was sometimes a little sarcastic, and I like that.
Looking back at your career, can you name one promo that you were involved with a wrestler next to you, and you were just like in awe, like, and you almost had goosebumps? Is there one promo that you can think of right now at the top of your head that was the greatest thing I've ever heard?
I don't think I could identify that with one promo, but Dusty Rhodes, I recall in WCW, I'm watching him and the way he kind of works, and Dusty could build, and build. He was great. Ric Flair started out here, bring her down, go back here, but Dusty was sitting talking about a promo. And he said, I was laying in bed with my wife, and middle of the night, and she said, what's that thumping that I hear? And he says, sweetheart, that's the heartbeat of America. It's coming from the dream. It's pounding through my chest, because I'm looking forward to this match with this guy and whatever. Those were good. They were storytellers. Ric Flair, great. Hogan, high energy all the way. How about the Iron Sheik? I mean, he entertained me. I don't know what he did for you guys. I don't know if he sold tickets, but he entertained me.
Well, you were there in the company, I guess when Sheik beat Backlund. What was
Right.
So there's some people saying the finish, the towel being thrown in, and Backlund didn't. Is that just fairy tale or?
The Backlund didn't want to lose?
Yeah,
That was probably Backlund's version
excuse?
of the screw
Okay.
job. Arnold was an office guy. Backlund didn't want to lose, especially to the Iron Sheik. But it had to be done for business because it was the setup for Hogan coming in.
Right. Speaking of screw jobs, we might as well touch about it because people are going to ask why we didn't ask you. What are your thoughts on the whole Montreal situation? Do you think Brett handled that right and Vince handled that right?
Well, I think Brett should have been a professional. He let his ego get in the way. Who was right, who was wrong. It's water over the dam, under the bridge, down the road. And the one thing I will say that surprised me, it sure made for a lot of conversation amongst fans. The internet was buzzing, the dirt sheets were loaded, and did Bret Hart really get effed? They call it the Montreal screw job. Maybe it was. Shawn Michaels know anything about it? Maybe he didn't. You'd say he had to, but it was Hebner that put the 3 count down, and the shoulder was clearly up. But Bret has to understand, you got to do business.
Who do you think deserves to be in the Hall of Fame in the future?
Oh God, I've got a list of a lot of guys. Unfortunately, there's a few of them that have left us in this world. But I would say Dusty definitely belongs in the Hall of Fame. Ric Flair, future Hall of Famer. I wanted to see the Crusher and the Bruiser inducted, and unfortunately they're both gone. How many dead guys can we induct in 1 year? But I think there's a lot of guys out there right now. Ricky Steamboat to me is a good candidate. Here's the problem we have. It's the WWE Hall of Fame. Do they have to be bona fide WWE stars or former stars, superstars? I think now that since the WWE is where it is, it represents the industry as a whole. Terry Funk should be in the Hall of Fame.
Without a doubt.
Dory Funk Jr. should be in the Hall of Fame. And I mean, I can go on and on with that list.
Who do you think will be the next big thing in the business? What guy?
There's some guy out there right now that doesn't have a character, doesn't have a persona. He's glib. He's a good athlete. He carries himself well. He has the look. He has the feel. He has that charisma that you have to have. And we don't know who he is, but he's out there. I knew Steve Austin when he was just a fledgling, stunning Steve
Right.
at WCW with Brian Pillman and part of the Hollywood Blondes. But when he came up with his Stone Cold character with that beer, that was the real Steve Austin. That's the reason it worked. And there's going to be somebody right around the corner that's going to arrive, and he's going to be very, very big.
Do you think the key to getting guys over is to have guys that connect with the audience and let them be themselves?
Yeah, I think that's very important. I think they have to be themselves. The Stone Cold beer drinking character is Steve Austin. Paul Orndorff told me about this guy. He says he's great. He likes to hunt, fish, drink beer, occasionally have a little goodie, but he's the real deal,
Right.
and that's why he was so good. Shawn Michaels was a late bloomer. Bret Hart, I mean, he worked a lot of long hard years to get where he got.
Right.
But there's somebody out there, I don't know if I see him right now, but I guarantee you The Office knows somebody. I really thought that Dave Bautista was on the cusp. He had a setback, but I think he's going to reemerge as probably one of the premier talents. I don't see a lot of Kurt Angle, and I thought that Kurt Angle was just, I mean, God, a fabulous piece of talent. I also, think that John Cena maybe pushed a little too hard, pushed to a fault, where all of a sudden we saw that backlash. And that has been chronicled in many of the publications and on many of the internet sites that, enough of John Cena. John Cena is going to be around. Good, hardworking kid, good work ethic, yeah.
Do you go to the sites a lot as far as the internet, or are you not really into the internet?
I used to when I had to steal material for my hotline.
Right.
I'm like that clown from the New York Times. I did plagiarize.
Right.
Because I lived in a vacuum.
Right.
I didn't know what was happening. I'd have to go to the sites. And I would talk to a lot of people. I would talk to a Bob Wright. I'd talk to a Madden.
Right.
I never really talked all that much with Dave Meltzer, with Wade Keller,
Right.
but I would talk to Alex Marvez.
Right.
I would talk to some of these people. If I would have had your telephone number, you wouldn't have kayfabed me on that. I would have been calling you.
Thank you. As far
Thank
as,
God that Doug would volunteer every now and then.
That's right.
I bet he would.
Yeah, probably.
A sickie.
As far as the bubble, do you think Vince is in a bubble as far as it's concerned with not knowing the talent that's out there, and only knowing the WWE world?
It's funny you should mention that because they were saying the same thing about him 10 years ago and 20 years ago. Is he living? Is he the boy in the bubble?
Right.
He knows what's going on. He's got enough people feeding him the right kind of information. That inner circle of his is very strong.
What are your feelings on guys having the cookie cutter look now these days in the business, as far as being big guys, having the same look? Do you think WWE needs different guys of different shapes and sizes to relate to the fans, like Abdul the Butcher types? Not Abdul the Butcher, but the sizes like King Kong Bundy's and stuff like that. Because right now you watch your TV and almost all the guys have the same cookie cutter look. Do you think that hurts the business?
Yeah, I do. I think you should have different and distinct looks. Back when I broke in, there were more big fat guys with pot bellies that would come on out.
Like a Dick Murdoch.
Yeah, the Dick Murdoch. But Dickie Murdoch was fantastic. It was a
Punch
great.
the
I saw
business.
that Legends match in Philadelphia
Right.
between him and Wahoo McDaniel, both old men by today's standards. But you know what? They could work. They could take an arm bar and work it for 5 minutes, and people would be on the edge of their seats. That goes back to the Johnny Valentines, the Ric Flairs, the Hardy Races.
What advice would you give to guys wanting to get into the business?
Well, I used to think I had a stock answer for that, but today I think there's so many other components, and that that break, that big break that you need to get into the business. I would say my own kids or something, if they wanted to get into it, I say forget about it. But if it is a lifelong ambition and they're ready to do it, then go to OVW or go to Dory Funk, but get the best training you can. And then you got to watch a lot of television. And I think you take the best of a lot of different people and you make something out of that.
Right.
Take a little bit of Ric Flair. Take a little bit of John Cena. Take a little bit of, I'm thinking of some of the more colorful guys. Take a little bit of the Crusher. Take a little bit of Jesse Ventura. And bring that up to date. We don't see a lot of that in today's world. Carlito, I think, was kind of a little bright light. I liked what he did.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you ever have aspirations ever to write a book?
Oh, I have got a manuscript that probably is somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,200 pages, and but it's something that I've worked at. It's a work in progress because I want to be able to tell the whole story. I want to be able to have lived the final chapter
Right.
when it's written.
Gotta wait till you're out of business then.
Well, I'm sure I'm going to step on a lot of toes.
Right. What's going on right now outside of the wrestling world for you? Talk about your business, Mean Gene Burgers.
Well, I had a long-term arrangement with a company called Orion Food Systems, but they were owned by a company called Schwann's Enterprises. I'm sure you've seen the trucks that go around and they deliver. Big company, $5 billion company. And then they were sold to Kohlberg, the son of the KKR guy.
Right.
He subsequently sold it to Allied Capital and a management buyout group. So before the last time, I did a new contract with them and said, if this company is ever sold again, I have the right to terminate my contract. Not for cause. I just have a right, point blank, to terminate. On March the 8th of this year, I terminated that contract. And what I am now doing, guys, is very simple. I'm trying to put together the same kind of a framework and do it on my own. All this at 63 years old, which most people would say, what the hell, are you nuts? At 63,
Right.
You want to go out and start another business endeavor? Yeah, I do. You're damn right.
I guess if you were working at Independent today, and you were the same age as you were when AWA got started, do you think you would get a shot in the WWE?
Yeah. I mean, I think the door is open. Even though they're not looking for a Gene Okerlund anymore,
Right.
I think they're looking for a little different nondescript character. But I mean, you've got the JR, he's here. Jerry Lawler's here. Michael Cole and Taz have been here. Joey Styles is over on the ECW side. I mean, so there's still some announcers with a personality.
Who did you travel with?
Oh, God forbid! I traveled by myself mostly, but I did.
Right.
I had the privilege of traveling a lot with Bobby Heenan.
Right.
I don't know if that was by design, but we did work together so many years, and a lot of that is in the book, if and when it comes out. I'm sure if I were to buy the farm tomorrow, my wife would peddle it to somebody for $1 million. They'd read it and say, if I can read it and like it, I'll pay you.
Right.
And everything is in that book.
Any good road stories you want to share with us? Any ribs or anything like that?
Bobby Heenan's so quick.
Right.
And Bobby loved to have a cocktail. And Bobby wanted to fly first class. We were in, I'm thinking, Salt Lake City, and we were going to run in Oakland the next day,
Right.
but there was no first class flight. There was Southwest and some other commuter airline out there where you could fly in an hour and a half from Salt Lake to Oakland, California. Bobby said, no, we're going first class. And he says, I've got you booked on the same flight. We're going to go. This is with WCW. This is how ridiculous it got. We had to fly from Salt Lake back to Denver on United and catch a flight that had first class into Oakland. The thing took us about 5 or 6 hours. Heenan drank all the whiskey in the world.
Right.
And of course, I was right there with him.
Right.
But on the second flight, he puts his luggage in the overhead, and he's having a hell of a time banging it in there, so he's popping on it, and of course he's half in the bag,
Right.
and some guy walks in and says, "Are you all right, sir?" Bobby says, turns around and looks at him and says, "What the hell are you, a doctor?"
That's great.
Brought me to my knees. Yeah.
Any regrets?
No regrets. No regrets. Even the changes.
Right.
Even the bad things that happened for a reason. The changes for a reason. Made me a better person.
Is there anything that you want to say to your fans out there that you might have never had a chance to say before?
Well, I'm sure I had a chance to say. Even my critics, I say, fine, go right ahead. But the fans, and I've got a lot of them. The one thing I want to say is, where the hell did you get a hold of my home address? That you're sending mail to me at my house, along with my bills. Forget about it. I've moved. I'm out of here.
Where do you see yourself in the next 10 years?
I think I'm still going to be doing some wrestling, health permitting. But I mean, I travel a pretty good schedule right now. Going through an airport today, gentlemen, is not the easiest thing in the world.
Right.
When they take the mousse out of my top kit for my hair,
Right.
I got hot.
Well, in closing, I want to thank you for being here today with us. It was a great interview, and hopefully one day we can do it again.
Rob, Doug, thank you, gentlemen, and good luck to you. Best to you both.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much.